Cool. So it looks like I'm recording, I think. And bear with me here. I'm not super good with the technology side of things, but I'm working on it. So I'm about to go on a trip to Orange County to speak out against the digital passports. And I just have a bunch of questions for you guys who are still believing in the science. People who have yet to do this search, people who have yet to do any due diligence. I'm just curious what it is that you think of this information I'm about to present for you guys here. So first of all, I'm just going to show you guys the scientist versus the shill. And here's the scientist right here, Carrie Mullis. Are you guys seeing this? I am screen sharing, it says. Okay, let's assume I'm screen sharing. And then this is 2 minutes and 17 seconds. I'm gonna let you guys watch this real quick.
What is it? What is it about humanity that wants to go to all the details and stuff and listen? You know, these guys like Fauci get up there and start talking. You know, he doesn't know anything really about anything, and I'd say that to his face. Nothing. The man thinks you can take a blood sample and stick it in an electron microscope, and if it's got a virus in there, you'll know it. He doesn't understand electron microscopy, and he doesn't understand medicine. He should not be in a position like he's in. Most of those guys up there on the top are just total administrative people, and they don't know anything about what's going on in the bottom. You know, those guys have got an agenda, which is not what we would like them to have, being that we pay for them to take care of our health in some way. They've got a personal kind of agenda. They make up their own rules as they go. They change them when they want to, and they smugly, like Tony Fauci, does not mind going on television in front of the people who pay his salary and lie directly into the camera. You can't expect.
So you guys think about that. You guys think that he's lying? The scientist who created the PCR, otherwise known as the COVID test, as they're calling it nowadays, you think the scientist is lying? Or do you think the shill that he's openly calling out right now is the one who's lying? The highest paid government official in our nation is lying. What do you guys think? I'm not even gonna say what I think. I'm just gonna present this to you guys and ask you, because I'm tired of hearing people talk about the science, yet they have no idea who Carrie Mullis is, who's the only scientist who's pertinent to this situation that we're talking about, as far as I'm concerned.
The sheep to really respect the best and the brightest. Expect the sheep to really respect the best and the brightest. They don't know the difference, really. I mean, I like humans. Don't get me wrong, but basically, the vast majority of them do not possess the ability to judge who is and who isn't a really good scientist. I mean, that's a problem. That's a main problem, actually, with science, I'd say, in this century, because science is being judged by people. Funding is being done by people who don't understand it. Okay, who we trust? Fauci? Fauci doesn't know enough to, you know. If Fauci wants to get on television with somebody who knows a little bit about this stuff and debate him, he could easily do it because he's been asked. I mean, I've had a lot of people, president of the University of South Carolina, asked Fauci if he'd come down there and debate me on the stage in front of the student body, because I wanted somebody who was from the other side to come down there and balance my, because I felt like, well, these guys can listen to me, but I need to have somebody else down here that's going to tell me the other side. But Fauci didn't want to do it.
And he died in August of 2019, for those of you guys who don't know, of pneumonia, apparently. And coincidental timing, maybe. I know that I sometimes hear from lots of people, and I can't help but disagree the older I get, that there's no such thing as a coincidence. But I'm just going to leave that there for you guys. You guys can look that up yourself. You guys can go onto Vimeo, type in Fauci Mullis Vimeo on your search engine. It should come right up. So hope that was eye-opening for you guys. I hope that was something that you guys are surprised by and will look more into if you haven't yet. Typically, just ask yourself, who runs from debates? Is it people who are lying or people who are honest? Who runs from scrutiny, guys? Who runs from their narrative being questioned? I think that one's pretty obvious. I think we all know that one. So let's just move on. This one is a good one to check out for those of you who are believing that the virus has been isolated. Actually, let me pull that up real quick for you guys. Reuters. Oh, let's see. I think it's probably right there. Yeah, boom. Thank you. All right, cool. So right here, guys. So if you look at this, right, it says fact check. You guys can read it, right? Has been isolated and its complete genome has been sequenced, okay? So that seems like those of you who are thinking, oh, well, it's never been isolated. And then you look this up and you're like, oh, for sure it has been isolated. And so then you scroll down a bit and what do you see? So they're giving you this straw man here. Let me see if I can find what I was looking for. And if you click on these links, guys, look what happens. There are multiple examples of scientists isolating SARS-CoV-2 here. Let's see if this is still the same as the last time I looked it up. This is one claiming from Korea. So you notice there's no pictures of it being isolated. All the pictures are of it in the mix of all this other stuff, which, you know, photo proof shows a lot, guys. Like they say, a picture shows 1,000 words. So they got all these pictures of it, but if they had it isolated, they would actually have a picture of it. The picture that you see all the time of that odd little circular thing with the 3D triangles coming off of it, that is a computer generated image. There's no actual images of it. And let's see. Okay, so this last time I clicked on this actually wasn't working, this link. So I can look at that later. Let me see. Okay, I did not scroll down to there. Oh, here we go. I know I was looking for where is it? No. Okay. Last time I clicked on these, most of these were dead links. So looks like they're actually working again, which is interesting. But yeah, if you look through all these, you can do it on your own, but you won't find a photo of it. And let me read through the bottom of this for you. So, okay, stop jumping on me. It's so annoying. So the argument about purification, that's the whole argument, right? And so let me just show you this. And this article was produced by the Reuters fact check team. Don't you guys find that interesting that there's no names on here? There's no way to hold anybody accountable. It's just a Reuters fact check team, and who knows how many employees they have. But okay. So anyways, this is a different fact check article than the was. Wait. Okay, anyways, I'm not going to spend more time on this. I just want to show you guys how dishonest they are and how much they'll try to claim one thing but then show no proof of it. Like I said, with no photo evidence, which is very telling. And then you go over to here and take a look at what this Dr. Wu Zhenyu from the Chinese Center for Disease Control, the Chinese CDC, admits on camera to NBC that right here has never been, okay? And this is from 2/3/21, right? So let's just show you real quick. It's only a 19-second clip. I'll play it for you a few times just so you guys can hear it for yourself. And I'm curious to know if anybody thinks that they have proof that this actually has happened. And this is important because without isolation, what are we testing for? I'm just asking, guys. The PCR test, which I'll show you in another video, Carrie Mullis says, the founder of the PCR test says it is not a test for infectious diseases. I'll show you that. But even if you were testing the PCR test, you need to first isolate the sample of what you're looking for, break down its RNA, and then you can test other samples for the similar RNA pattern, but obviously that hasn't happened. So here we go. So let me show you this right from the mouth of the CDC, or right from the muzzle, unfortunately, of the CDC China, Dr. Wu's on you.
Why has the data not been shared?
No, they didn't isolate the virus. That's the issue.
What about live animal samples?
It doesn't tell you anything if they only test positive. I do not suspect.
So guys, if it doesn't tell you anything, if they only tested positive, then what are we doing? Why are we reporting positive tests? Why are we talking about this at all?
It's coming from what we originally thought.
Why has the data not been shared?
No, they didn't isolate the virus. That's the issue.
What about live
So,
animal
what do you guys
samples?
think?
It doesn't tell you anything if they only test positive. I do not suspect it's coming from what we originally thought.
Why has the data?
All right, guys. So that's enough for you. You guys can check that out. I got this off of, at one point, this was on YouTube, and it doesn't seem to be there anymore. But if you look at this guy's Twitter, and I don't know who he is, a veteran of Soviet-Afghan War, presently national security analyst and founding consultant brass. So it sounds like he's got a lot of followers, 335.5 thousand. Maybe you could be another one. Check into what he's about, what he's sharing. And let's see. All right, cool. So I'll click out of this. And then next one I wanted to show you guys. Okay.
Grow bigger balls. There was a study.
What is it? What is it?
Okay,
about
this, you guys already saw
humanity?
this one. Click out of that one. This is one that you haven't seen. Let me show you this.
I want to ask this to Carrie. How do they misuse PCR to estimate all these supposed free viral RNA?
In full disclosure, this is an old video, as you can tell, and it comes from the time when HIV was the talking point, not obviously the quote unquote pandemic that happened after this man's passing. So, but it's the same test, the same things he's saying applies to his test in general and what it can and cannot be used for. So just listen to it with an open set of ears, and then I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comments.
RNAs that may or may not be PCR to. I want to ask this to Carrie. How do they misuse PCR to estimate all these supposed free viral RNAs that may or may not be there?
I think misuse PCR is not quite. I don't think you can misuse PCR. The results, the interpretation of it. See, if you can say, if they could find this virus in you at all, and with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body, okay? So that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful.
All right, guys, so what do you think of that? The founder of the PCR test says it can be thought of as a misuse to claim that it's meaningful. So without the meaning to this test, Dr. Wu's on you just said that the positive test means nothing. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys think you heard it differently, that's what I heard. And now the founder of the PCR test is saying that it could be thought of as a misuse to claim that it's meaningful, and then to let him go on.
But the real misuse of it is that you don't need to test for HIV. You don't need to test for the other 10,000 retroviruses that are unnamed, also in the subject. See, somebody that's got HIV.
Unnamed in the subject and then subsequently in the sample, right, guys? You cannot take something that has not been purified and then speak on just a part of it. You can speak on all of it. You can do a test on the entire sample, which contains cellular matter, whatever they're feeding that cellular matter, whatever the waste is from that cellular matter. They can test all of that, but if they cannot purify it, if they cannot isolate it, then they cannot test an RNA sequence of what it is that they're even claiming to be looking for.
Generally is going to have almost anything that you can test for, because they have definitely been, HIV is a fairly rare virus. There's only 1 million of us out of 250, 300 million people in America that have that virus. So you have to get around, either your mother had to have it and pass it to you, or you have to really be paying a lot of attention to people that do have it and paying only attention to them and get a pretty good chance of getting it that way. It's hard to get it, but if you have it, there's a good chance you've also got a lot of other ones, because you've been in the market where it's been possible for you to get a lot of. To test for that one and say that has any special meaning is what I think is the problem. Not that PCR has been misused. It's like, it's not an estimation. It's a really quantitative thing. It tells you something about nature and about what's there, but it allows you to take a very minuscule amount of anything and make it measurable, and then talk about it in meetings and stuff like it is important. See, that's not a misuse. That's just sort of a misinterpretation.
Even after all these PCR, this quantitative PCR, that if you just get down to a basic virological count, it's still 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 10,000. HIV in 1 to 1 in 1,000, 1 in 500 to 1 in 1,000 T cells.
It is. There's very little of what they call HIV, and what's been brought out here by Philpott and Isai already. The measurement for it is not exact at all. It's not as good as our measurement for things like Apple.
All right, guys, so they're talking about a minuscule amount of something that doesn't necessarily have any meaning. Not really sure why they're testing for it. He obviously doesn't agree with the whole boogeyman scenario. And so, yeah, let's just play the rest of this thing out. See, I can't remember if there's anything else that I wanted to show here.
An apple is an apple. You know, you can get something that's kind of like, if you got enough things that look kind of like an apple and you stick them all together, you might think it's an apple. But and HIV is like that. Those tests are all based on things that are invisible, and the results are inferred in a sense. PCR is separate from that. It's just a process that's used to make a whole lot of something out of something. That's what it is. But it's not. It doesn't tell you that you're sick, and it doesn't tell you that the thing you ended up with really was going to hurt you or anything like that. That's what it's not.
That's what I want to show you guys. It doesn't tell you that you're sick, and it doesn't tell you that the thing that you ended up with was going to hurt you or anything like that. So this is coming from the founder of the PCR test, the founder of the quote unquote COVID test. He is a Nobel Prize winning scientist. He's had a number of accomplishments in his life that I'm not going to get into. Research him, please check out his videos while they still exist. That's part of why I'm doing this. I know this isn't the most organized video, but these videos are getting taken off of the internet because they're a little bit too truthy for our censors out there. And so it's just important, guys. Do your own research, check into this stuff. Let me see if there's anything else here I wanted to show you.
So even if you believe in HIV, it can't tell the difference between virus particles or active live virus. I mean, there's a lot of questions involved. Guys, thank you.
All right, and that sets me up actually for the next video I wanted to show you, where Fauci himself, who, by the way, guys, before I forget, if anybody knows of anything that Fauci has ever accomplished in his life, scientifically, as a doctor, has he ever healed a single patient? Has he ever made a single scientific discovery? I know he's been in the government for going on 30 years, I want to say. I know he's the highest paid government official, outranking Biden by hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I don't know why he is in that place. I don't know that he has ever proven himself to be good at anything other than, as Fauci says, lying directly into the face of those who pay him, which is us, by the way, guys. All right, so let me click out of this. And so like he's saying, it doesn't tell you if these things are alive or if they're just dead nucleotides, right? Which brings me to this. I believe it's 3 minutes something in. Oh,
facility, because right now the physicians are really having a hard time with that.
Right. Again, a good question. And what is now sort of
evolving into a bit of a standard that if you get a cycle threshold of 35 or more, that the chances of it being replication competent are minuscule. So that if somebody, and we have patients, and it's very frustrating for the patients as well as for the physicians. Somebody comes in and they repeat their PCR and it's like 37 cycle threshold. But you almost never can culture virus from a 37 threshold cycle. So I think if somebody does come in with 37, 38, even 36, you got to say, it's just dead nucleotides, period.
Yeah, because as you know, we can't easily culture infectious viruses. You don't have a BSL-3 lab everywhere.
Exactly.
So is the threshold cycle is reporting that a pretty standard practice in doing a diagnosis now rather than just positive or negative? Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, when you go in, when I get my test, it's negative. When someone comes in and it's positive, they don't give them the threshold until you go back and ask for it.
Okay.
So you see that double speak there, guys? He said, well, and then he essentially said, no, you have to call and ask for it yourself. And just think about how mind-blowingly irresponsible that is to be the quote unquote nation's top doctor, the top scientist, to be in charge of exactly what it is he's talking about. And he's saying that the patient who has been given a positive has to call, whether they're sick or not, he wants them to call in that time of stress and research at the lab how many cycles that they ran. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine how incredibly irresponsible that is? Imagine the head of any other organization. Like, it's so hard to think of a proper example for that because it's just so mind-blowingly disgusting that he would sit here and say, oh yeah, anything over 35 is meaningless, which, like I said before, if the virus has yet to be isolated, which I'm waiting for proof of, I've seen proof right there, Dr. Wu Zhenyu saying it hasn't, but I don't know that whether or not it has for sure. You guys can fill me in if you think that you have some good evidence of that. I'm always learning. I'm never done learning. But basically, this guy's admitting that anything over 35 is meaningless. So a good idea for him would be to maybe disallow labs from running more than 35, set a national standard. But instead, he puts that onto the patient's responsibility list. This guy right here in the upper left, I'm not sure who he is, he doesn't challenge him on that. He doesn't say, whoa, wait a minute. So it's not reported. So when you get your test, it doesn't say this has been done 37 cycle thresholds, 38 cycle thresholds, so that even the guy who's in charge of creating the boogeyman out of this culture, which has never been purified, even this guy's admitting that that is not something that should be done, right? And so I believe I have to look it up. I might do another follow-up video or comment below if you guys have this information. I believe that the cycle threshold was officially changed around the time when the injection started rolling out, which also, guys, just on that note, think about the timing of when they started rolling out the injection, right? They did it at a time when flu season's already over, right? The flu season that never happened this year, right? What happened to the flu? So they rolled it out in the spring when people are already getting more vitamin D, already getting healthier, already less likely to be getting ill. And then they can try to say, hey, look, because the injection's being rolled out, now look at the cases are going down. When in reality, they did two things. They waited till spring when the cases naturally go down. People are healthier in the spring than they are in the winter. Newsflash. And what else was I going to say there? They, anyways, I'm blanking. I'm hungry. I need to eat lunch. But so yeah, let me click out of this real quick. But just shockingly irresponsible, guys. Can you at least agree with me on that? That it is amazingly irresponsible for this guy to allow a nation to test people's samples over and over and over, cycle threshold after cycle threshold, with no responsibility there, no number. You notice he doesn't have any set limit. It's not like, oh, the cycle threshold was 40 and then they realized that that was too much and they had to bring it down to 35. There just was no cycle threshold, which means as a lab, you can do what Kerry Mullis said prior. You can do it for long enough and find almost anything in anyone, right? Makes you believe in the Buddhist notion that we're all one, like he said, right? So these labs can be running it 80 times, 90 times, 100 times, no scrutiny, no rules, just trust the science, right, guys? Unbelievable. And I know a lot of you guys do trust the science because it wasn't your favorite subject, maybe. I had a tiger mom, one of the only, non-Asians that I know with a tiger mom, but my mom demanded 4.0 from us. So I got straight A's in everything, and I understand science. I did better than all of the kids in my class at science and math. I was always the top of my class. And so I don't look at it as something that's like this magical world that's hard to understand. I look at it as this very simple world where things happen. It's like math meets biology, and I like both of them. And so anyways, I'm just going to click out of this. And there's one other video I wanted to share with you guys. Let me see if I can find it on my many tabs right here. That's one of the later ones. All right, so this is a good one, guys. This is a BitChute video. Let me see. I'll show you guys how you can find it. Let's see what the channel is called. It's called The Dead Gene, right? And this is the video. Some of it's covering stuff that I already went over. Let me see if I can find the part that I want to talk about.
Dr. Kerry Mullis was awarded the Nobel Prize for his invention of the polymerase chain reaction, the PCR. The PCR is a method of analysis and wasn't designed to test for a virus. Mullis explains why.
And with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body, okay? So that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful.
The PCR test can potentially find anything you are looking for, depending on how high you turn it up. And this is exactly what has been done. The official protocol given for the PCR testing of COVID-19 created a floodgate of false positives to skew the results. They call it asymptomatic because it's a lie. These people don't have symptoms because they don't have COVID-19. They do it today.
And there's another video I can show you guys that also says it's Fauci on stage speaking. This is prior to the pandemic, but he's saying that asymptomatic cases are never the driver of a pandemic. And do you guys know what never means? I do. Just making sure.
Because they've done it in the past and always gotten away with it. 30 years ago, Anthony Fauci, head of the NIH, made a name for himself by pushing for higher doses of the deadly drug AZT, an old cancer chemotherapy too dangerous for approval, onto AIDS patients. Kerry Mullis was hired to measure HIV in people's blood samples with his PCR. He was working under the premise that HIV was the probable cause of AIDS. But when he went looking for the proof, he found there was none. They just made it up.
What is that paper? Who do I go to for that? And I looked around, I asked a couple of virologists at that company, and they said, well, no, you don't have to reference. I said, I have to reference that because I don't know where that came from. How do I know that? And it turned out that nobody knew it. And I was getting really freaked about that.
And what he's talking about, guys, is that he was tasked with writing a grant for this HIV/AIDS research, and the first line of it that he was supposed to write, he was tasked with writing that HIV is the cause of AIDS or something to that effect, and he wouldn't write it without finding proof, finding evidence, because he knew that the way scientific papers are written, you had to put a little one near it and then do a footnote at the bottom showing the source that explains why you can state that scientific fact. And so he didn't want to state a scientific fact without doing his due diligence and showing the proof that that fact is a fact. And so anyways, he started looking, and he, like he'll tell you here, was unable to find anything.
That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody really knows. This whole thing is a big sham.
Mullis pointed out how the
Sound
CDC was
familiar?
losing money and how the HIV/AIDS connection brought their profits back in the black, and how the men at the highest levels were all in on it. Kerry Mullis knew these men were dangerous.
They don't want people like me walking up and asking them those kind of questions. And they're willing to go to great lengths to prevent that. They're out on a limb. I wouldn't want to be there with them.
But he was still outspoken. When ABC's Nightline approached him about doing a documentary on his work, Mullis convinced them to cover the HIV debate after nearly a decade of ignoring it. In a 1994 interview with Celia Farber for Spin magazine, Kerry Mullis expressed how he really wanted to expose Anthony Fauci and Robert Gallo. He said that he'd be willing to chase the little bastard from his car to his office, a Nobel Prize winner trying to ask a simple question from those who spent $22 billion and killed 100,000 people. It has to be on TV. I'm not unwilling to do something like that. Unfortunately, not many people were listening back then. And on August 7th, 2019, just about 3 months before the first utterance of COVID-19, Kerry Mullis, age 74, a Nobel Prize winner, inventor of the PCR test, a man who was once willing and eager to expose Anthony Fauci, quietly died of pneumonia. The timing of it all is mysterious to many of us.
All right, guys. So there's a lot of information there that you can look up on your own. Let me just see real quick if I can find that asymptomatic video that I just talked about. Stop that. Fauci asymptomatic. Yeah, right here. God bless BitChute, by the way, guys. I hope you guys are on there. My channel is Stewards of Liberty. I'm going to be posting this video there, as well as YouTube until they, or let's just hope that it stays up. I really haven't made
But the
any
one thing
claims other than
historically
just
people need to
pointing
realize-
out information.
But the one
and
thing
asking questions, so we'll
But the
see.
one thing historically people need to realize that even if there is some asymptomatic transmission, in all the history of respiratory-borne viruses of any type,
What? Oops, I just accidentally clicked on something, I guess. Ears ringing. That's a holistic issue, guys. Tinnitus. If anybody has it. I think I looked it up once for ex-girlfriend's mom, and now they show me shit about it all the time.
but the one thing historically people need to realize that even if there is some asymptomatic transmission, in all the history of respiratory-borne viruses of any type, asymptomatic transmission has never been the driver of outbreaks. The driver of outbreaks is always a symptomatic person. Even if there's a rare asymptomatic person that might transmit, an epidemic is not driven by asymptomatic carriers.
Yet they make you muzzle yourself before you go into public accommodations, which is illegal. And so I don't want to watch this next video. Okay. There's one more thing I wanted to add. Oh yeah. Let me look up this. I believe it was a World Tribune article. Asymptomatic Chinese 10 million. All right. So this is Tribune India. You guys can look this up yourself. You see the link right there, and you saw what I just typed in. Hopefully that same thing will work for you. So China's Wuhan tests 10 million people, finds 300 asymptomatic COVID-19 cases. They did their due diligence, and they found that not a single one of them transmitted the disease. So, and they did this by contact tracing, you know, all that other stuff. Let me see. It's cost them $900 million to do this testing. So the results not only whisked off foreign media's baseless accusation that there were massive numbers of asymptomatic virus carriers in Wuhan, but also served as an unquestionable milestone to China's virus battle. Let's see. Where's the verdict? This is not the first article I found. This one's not written very well. That's annoying. Okay, well, let's see if I'm going to search for it one more time. Yeah, this is the original one. I found this on World Tribune. See if this one's a little bit easier to read. But it's just important, guys. You do your due diligence and question the quote unquote science, see if there's anything scientific about it. Here again is that computer generated image that they want to claim is the boogeyman that has your country shut down. And so, yeah, a new study of nearly 10 million people in Wuhan, China, ground zero for the coronavirus, showed that asymptomatic spread of COVID does not occur. So, guys, if you guys have anything that proves that it does, I'd be interested in hearing it. I'd be interested in looking at who paid for that research and what their motives were. But I really don't even think it exists. I think that they're just giving a lot of baseless speculation, and this is the actual truth right here, guys. So anyways, lots to question here, guys. I hope you're doing your due diligence, doing your homework, and I hope you're staying curious. And I hope you're aware that many of the people who have been speaking truth on this matter for a long time, you don't have to apologize to them, but you could stop rejecting everything they say on face and actually look into it first and see if your friends that are trying to share truth with you are actually showing you something of value or if they're lost. And it's important that we all, give each other some credit and don't just write people off because they disagree with the main narrative. So I'm going to stop right there, guys. I got to get on the road. I'm crashing in SoCal this evening, and I'll be speaking out at the Board of Supervisors meeting tomorrow in Orange County. So hope you guys, some of you guys are out there with me. We need power in numbers. The more the merrier. So God bless you guys for taking the time to watch this video. There will be t-shirts. This is actually not one of the t-shirts we're selling, but I have t-shirts too that I'm going to be bringing down, just saying end the obedience epidemic, which is what we're dealing with, guys. It's an obedience epidemic. And let me see if I can get this to be the main thing. Okay, well, whatever. Anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I appreciate you. If you want to support, feel free to reach out. We did just create a Patreon. I still need to finish that up, but the more people that are supporting our quest for truth and our quest for stewardship and liberty, which stewardship undergirds liberty. So if you're focused on one without the other, I suggest you look into both. And like I said, you can find us on BitChute, YouTube, Patreon, Instagram, Facebook. The Freedom People, just check us out. Stewards of Liberty. And steward is a word that's kind of unfortunately going out of style. Trying to change that, trying to bring it back. Steward is spelled Steward, not Stewart like the name. People always think that. Steward, like person who takes care of the land, person who takes care of their responsibilities. So anyways, God bless you guys, and please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Couldn't do this without you guys. So I hope you guys are having a good week and remain vigilant.